Week 7 of the fantasy football season, and here's a few defense DST units I look to start this week. The first one's the New England Patriots. So this Patriot team, they've been playing sound football over the last few weeks, and last season we know they were a great defense at turning the football over and making plays. So right here, the last 2 weeks, they really put in numbers. Week 5 versus Detroit, 2 sacks and into fumble recovery touchdown, and then Week 6 at Cleveland, another good matchup, 15 points allowed, 4 sacks, 2 windows, 2 fumble recoveries. So Week 7 here, another great matchup versus the Chicago Bears. That offense is stagnant. Justin Fields, he looks lost out there most weeks than not. And the Bears give up the 6th most fantasy points to defenses. So right here, this ball game's in Gillette. I think this Patriot defense is going to come out once again with a double-digit type of day. And it wouldn't be surprising to me if they finish in the top 3 or even number 1 in fantasy points. And I like the Patriots as a start this week. The next defense is the Green Bay Packers. So the Packers defense has been up and down so far over the last couple weeks here. But this week, a great matchup at the Washington Commanders with Taylor Heineke taking over at quarterback after Carson Wentz has gone down with a finger injury that will cost him 4 weeks, even though this Commander offense really hasn't been hitting on all cylinders the last few weeks. So the last few weeks here for the Packers, Week 4 versus New England, 18 points allowed, 4 sacks, a fumble recovery. Week 5 versus the Giants, 27 points allowed, a sack and a safety. In Week 6 versus the Jets, you would have thought it was a decent matchup, but 27 points allowed and 2 sacks where the defense put the Jets in good position, and Brees Hall really finished off a lot of good drives in that ball game. So right here, I think Green Bay versus this Washington Commander team, they got to come out and make a statement. And like I said, this Commander team, they don't really get the job done for the most part in the red zone. And I don't know if Heineke's really much of an upgrade at all than Carson Wentz, even though Wentz is out because of injury, but they were thinking a few weeks ago of going to Heineke before Wentz went down. But anyway, I like Green Bay this week to bounce back versus Washington. The next defense is the Denver Broncos. So the Broncos defense has been a strength to this team, but everything else hasn't been that great besides kicker. The offense has been stagnant. Russell Wilson's been banged up. He's not hitting his guys. And this defense has kept them in ball games on the season here. And that's the only reason right now Denver has won a couple ball games, 11-10 and 16-9. They've won 2 ball games. The rest, they've grinded out but lost to the last couple weeks here for this Denver DST. Week 5 versus Indianapolis, 12 points allowed, 6 sacks, 2 interceptions. And Week 6 at the Chargers, 19 points allowed, 2 sacks, and an into. So right here, Week 7 versus the Jets offense, besides Brees Hall, the last couple weeks here, the wide receivers haven't done much, and Zach Wilson, his stat lines have been quiet, but the Jets have been winning on running and defense. So right here, if Denver can make offense one-dimensional, where Zach Wilson has to throw more, I think this is where this Denver defense can make a few plays and put up some fantasy numbers. So right here, I think there'll be a top 10 defense this week once my rankings come out later in the week here. And like I said, this unit's one of the better defenses in the league in points allowed, and just in fantasy football in general, I think they're solid. So right here, I got the Broncos as a start this week. The next defense is the Dallas Cowboys. So the Cowboys coming off a couple tough matchups the last few weeks here. Now I have a pretty decent one versus the Detroit Lions. I give up the 12th most fantasy points to defenses on the year. So Dak Prescott should be back in this game, which will help the defense if the Cowboys have longer drives. And also, right here, this Detroit offensive line ain't all that great. I know Jared Goff's been pretty good, but on the road, he's been a worse quarterback than at home. He's been a great quarterback, but on the road, he's been a mediocre to poor quarterback. So right here, Cowboys back at home. Lions, their offense is good, like I said, but I think this Cowboy team could get a few turnovers in this ball game. I don't know if we'll see a shootout because, like I said, Goff on the road hasn't been putting up good numbers. But anyway, this Cowboy defense, they get to the quarterback. They make some plays. I know last week versus Philly was a down game, 26 points allowed, but they still had the 4 sacks. And in this one, I think they could have 4 or 5 sacks and create a couple turnovers. So I like the Cowboys as a start this week. In the 5th and final defense, I look to start the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So the Bucs, you know, they got to be livid after losing that ball game to the Pittsburgh Steelers, where the Bucs were favored easily by a lot to win that one. So right here, this Buc defense hasn't been the problem this season. It's been the offense. We're running the football too much and too much predictable plays. So this offense has to come off to a better start and put this defense in better positions as well. So the last few weeks here for this D, Week 5 versus Atlanta, 15 points allowed and 5 sacks. And Week 6 at Pittsburgh in a tasty matchup, 20 points allowed and only 2 sacks. So right here, it's going to be Jacob Eason or PJ Walker starting this game if Walker's cleared from the concussion protocol. So right here, Panthers have nothing on offense. DJ Moore's done nothing all season. And it's pretty much Christian McCaffrey. So if they could zero in on McCaffrey, is this Tampa Bay Buck team, and make Eason or Walker try to beat him, whoever's going to start this game, they're going to pounce in this one and make some plays. I know last week I thought the same, but this week here, they definitely got to come out in a division game and be fired up and play better. So I think this Tampa team bounces back as a whole, and I wouldn't be surprised if this defense has a top 3 performance this week. So that's a few defense DST units I look to start here for week 7 of the fantasy football season.